We'll get started again.
Yeah,
20 minutes across the road from Tim Goose. Yeah, so we've got on.
we had no reading about this, or very minimal.
We're going to get all that now, so we'll hand over Financial Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board members, we, as you may or may not know, we are currently undertaking a complete rates review. So this has come about October 2024. The council decided to harmonise funding, so mainly rates, for the majority of is.
Sorry, new de-jargonised, harmonised for me, please.
Well, it's districtisation, which is a word that doesn't exist. So they've grouped all of the rates together. Yep. Yeah, we put the consultation document out, and yeah, districtisation is not a word that's in the dictionary. And very hard to pronounce. So what we've done is, for the majority of activities, we have said the same funding source will be for those activities. There are community board exceptions that continue to exist. Your grants and reserves is the main one. This all took effect from 1 July 2025. As part of the submissions to our LTP, there were a couple that supported a rates review. We hadn't asked for it at that time, but there was a little bit of an underlying current that suggested that it currently wasn't as fair as it could have been. And then the new council supported a rates review with any changes to be considered and incorporated in the next LTP, which is fast coming up, 12 months away, but there's a lot of work to do with that. Can I have the next slide? Thanks, Sarah. So why are we doing it now? The rates have not been reviewed for a long time in terms of who pays what rates are set and the likes. In fact, asking a couple of people around the council, they couldn't remember the last time it was done. So the council has also determined that funding, and they specifically talk about fair, future-proofed and flexible, is their number one strategic priority, with a weighting of 50%. Three Waters is leaving us, so it's a good time to have a review because that takes away that component. It's very important to understand that this review does not change the size of the pie. It just determines who pays for what slice. It's divvying up the pie. It's still the same currently. So obviously, as councils go through the LTP process, annual plan processes, etc., and add more services they might want, that will increase it. But what we're looking at right now is, this is the pie. This is how it could be divided. We've undertaken 4 public workshops to discuss and guide the council's thinking to get to this point. And the rates review will benefit council in proposed local government reform. That was a question that was asked at the time. Should we be continuing with this? What we're looking at doing is trying to simplify the system. The types of proposals we're talking about aligns us more with our neighbours as well. So it actually could possibly benefit this type of thing. Next slide, thanks, Sarah. So the process. Council will. We've got the wrong one. This is the. Doesn't matter. It's all the same except for that statement. This is the Tevia Maniatota one. Council's meeting on the 10th of June to decide its position on what it wants to do. It will then prepare a statement of proposal and a draft revenue and financing policy. All those are statutory documents. And that will go forward for public consultation starting the end of July and ending early September. Everything else is fine, Sarah.
I don't think
that's cool. Council will decide to consult on what basis to levy rates. Currently, we have a bit of a hybrid. Most of our rates are levied on land value. council's looking at recommending a change to capital value. Should we be using general rates or targeted rates? Currently, a targeted rate is things like the community facilities rate that pays for our pools and our halls and the likes. Council are thinking of moving everything to the general rate except the community board exceptions. Council will also pre-engage with specific affected parties to let them know the changes coming and what it might look like. We have talked to Contact already, and I'll talk a little bit about further on. Federated farmers, the fruit grower people, we'll start talking to Grey Power, the business groups in the various towns. So we kind of got a wide net that we're trying to engage with, and that will happen after the 10th. We'll start that process because we'll have a view on what council wants to do. And then
Did you have a big take up where you said you had some meetings, or feedback? Your feedback, did you get a lot of feedback from those meetings, or?
They were mainly written submissions. Yeah.
Mainly written.
Yeah, they were. We haven't gone out and spoken to people.
So it was just written.
It was written submission. There'd be people like Federated Farmers who would turn around and, they've submitted. Subsequent to the long-term plan and people starting to receive their rates bills, we've had correspondence from people suggesting that, that we need to look at the rates because it's not fair for them. Not that this will potentially fix those things, but we're going to look at it to see what the lie of the land is. So we're going to pre-engage with people, and that's really important because there are some significant changes that have occurred. And I think I can talk about that at the end. We're proposing 3 options, and one of which is the status quo, so we don't change anything. We did consider 13 options. I just really want to reiterate as well, nothing has been decided. The council have not said these are what we're preferring. We're putting it out there so people can actually have a bit of a think and some input into what that might look like. Things may change as a result of consultation. We will keep solid waste rate the same as a fixed charge because that's effectively as close to user pays as you can probably get for a service. You either have bins or you don't have bins. And then if you don't have bins, you pay for the transfer stations. So we're also proposing, as I said, not to change the community board grants rate. So that will still be sitting in your areas. It will be determined by you guys. You'll get to obviously distribute what you collect, and the rate will stay as it currently is levied. And it's levied on capital value, and it has a differential. So rural pay less and commercials pay more. Next one, thanks, Sarah. Right. We're looking at simplifying the rates by removing the remaining targeted rates and getting all of those activities funded through the general rate. We're also proposing to change the basis of rating from land value to capital value. This has an impact. It will bring in additional ratepayers, such as utilities, power companies, power poles, telecommunications with the little telecom boxes on the side of the road. Don't get rated on those because their land value is small. You start bringing in those, changing to capital value, you bring in a whole bunch more ratepayers who currently aren't contributing. It will also impact orchardists, for argument's sake, because orchardists have a lot of value tied up in the trees, and the trees are specifically allowed to be rated for under the Rate Valuations Act of 1998. But it doesn't bring in forestry, which is kind of strange. But I guess from the point of view, an orchard, its production is in its trees. You grow stuff, you keep them for a long, long time. Forestry, you grow it, you cut it down, you plant it again. So you would have a value that would start to rise, and then as you cut it down, it would drop down. having,
Couldn't argue that in a bad season, a orchard can have very similar problems.
well, yeah, but you don't cut the trees down necessarily. So the trees are there for the next season to, because it's not about income, it's about the actual asset that you have. And I get your point, given forestry now carbon farms, that's a different, but it's specifically excluded under the Rating Valuations Act.
Okay.
So we have to think of another way to get that. And there are other ways to do that. IRA, for argument's sake, put a multiplier on forestry blocks to reflect that they wanted to collect more from forests. So we can do anything like that.
Is that something you're looking at? 'Cause I'm not saying you charge everybody more, but if you're going to be charging an orchardist, and if you're wanting a fair system.
Yeah, it has been discussed. I'd take you back to we had 13 options to start with, and that was just broad brush options. When you start saying, do we have a crack at that part of the industry, and suddenly it's not 13, it's 39 or 50. That's not to say that people can't submit on, hey, we think that this needs to change, that for argument's sake, forestry needs to pay more. And then we can start tailoring the solution once we've heard from people. So the answer is yes, we can change it. We did consider it. We're looking pretty broad at the moment. Next slide, thanks, Sarah. So there are three options that we're proposing. Option one is the status quo. So it's the same basis as the 26-27 annual plan that's coming out at the end of this month. It will have all of the same targeted rates. There'll be different levels, obviously. It will still be based on land value. Fixed charges will be quite considerable through the targeted rating space. Option two is to change our basis from land value to capital value and remove the current differentials for hydro, consolidate rates into the general rates. Now, the differentials for hydro, we have obviously the contact hydro dams and QV potable value changed the methodology on valuing hydros. It was less than $1 billion in previous annual plans. It's now close to 3.33 billion in terms of land and capital value. Now, we chose to do the rates review before QV. I just want to make that point very, very clear that we started this process well before QV came back with their numbers. So you've got a movement in hydro capital value, which means that they would pay more. They currently have a differential which limits their increase to the average rates increase across the district. So we're looking at 6.36% rates rise at this annual plan. That's how much more they would pay. Obviously, a shift to capital value is a significant change for them. So we have started to engage with them prior to any of this going out to public. I mean, all of our workshops have been public, but it's more this may be coming type conversation. Option three is to change to capital value, remove current differentials for the hydros, apply a differential of ×2 on all properties except residential, lifestyle and other. Other is a category that we have in our rating system. It tends to be sports grounds, churches, those types of activities that don't pay rates. So applying a ×2 is ×2 of nothing. So we take that out. So what that would mean is that the differential would be on shops, businesses, hydros, farms, forests, orchards, all of that carried on would pay a ×2 multiplier, which would reduce the costs associated to the residential properties, but increase the costs to commercial activities. Now, we picked those three because they are sufficiently different from each other that it gives a good range of discussion that can be had. We did look at, there were 6 options that mimicked option 3, a multiplier of 1.5, 2 and 3. So we ended up with a whole bunch of options that almost said the same. So the council's hopefully going to pick that one as option 3 that they can go out and consult on.
Keeping with our neighbours, like some of the proposals.
Yep.
May I ask, in terms of the differential of a ×2, do we have neighbouring councils that are applying that at this point?
Yeah, the keeping with our neighbours is moving from land value to capital
Yeah,
value.
gotcha, okay.
There are instances, and it might not be our neighbours, but other councils do charge commercials more. And the reason they do that is the commercial activities get the benefit of being able to claim GST back, and they get the ability to deduct tax. And all of the rates is usually tax deductible. So they've got an advantage of about 43% over a residential anyway. There will be small, some will charge more for commercial, but it's how the council needed to put something out as an option, I guess. And as I say, these aren't fixed in concrete. They're I guess starters for 10 that people can then have a look at how it impacts their business or their situation and say, hey, that's not going to work for me. Because I will guarantee you that there will be some winners in this and there will be some losers. And we will probably hear from the losers more than we will hear from the winners.
Probably you will.
Yeah, there's a guarantee. I don't know too long knowing that one.
I know. I've been polite.
Just understand, given we're reallocating the same size pie, what percentage do we collect from all the properties except residential versus residential? Are we kind of 50-50?
Well,
Are we 60-40?
I can tell you rural versus urban is about 46% urban. Rural. So that means it'll be about 54% would be in the urban space. I can't tell you
And then commercial into that. So
I can't tell you that.
60 or 70% probably will be ×2. That'll be a significant win for me.
It will have an impact on your commercial if we went down that track. The impact, however, is not as great because you're removing the differentials on the hydros. So instead of paying 800,000, they may be paying 4 million.
Yeah.
So there's a significant chunk of rates that they will be picking up even under option 2. It'll be a lot higher under option 3.
Yeah.
So that will limit the impact on all other ratepayers because about 4.6 million is about 10% of our requirement.
Yeah.
So 10% is being paid by one entity. And when you put on the fact that there's about $500,000 in benefit from other utilities, so that's the water's utilities, but it's also the telecoms, power lines, transpower lines, that sort of stuff. So there is a significant amount of money that potentially is coming out of everybody else's requirement. But it was really,
And that's the relativity I was looking for, just to understand the dynamics.
yeah, I mean, we're looking at kind of, I don't think it's the extremes, but it's kind of putting it out there to say, it's not uncommon to have a commercial differential. Some of them are quite high. If you look at Wellington City, they have a reasonably large commercial differential for their area.
The hydro differentials for, I guess, Mackenzie, like who else would be compared?
Yep. Now, we're first cab off the rank from a valuation perspective, because you've got to look at it from the point of view, QV are independent, they will do the values. We, as a council, we just take what they tell us. I mean, we're not valuers, we're not experts. So we've been revalued differently from the past. We're the first ones. Interestingly, they didn't object to the valuation. And it would have been a significant jump. So that would have been the first port of call to object, which I think then lends itself for QV to move on to Southland, I think, are the next one. You know, they're going to pick up Te Anau and the like. So they're going to be revaluing, not Te Anau, Manapori. They are going to be valuing those hydros in a similar manner. It may be, and I know that if you go to the Waitaki and the Mackenzie, they are a different owner, and they are a little bit more belligerent. Look, I worked at Mackenzie for 11 and a half years. I know Meridian. I know how they, and that's cool. That's just the way it is, and that's what you're allowed to do. They are more attuned to checking these things out than I've noticed with Contact at the moment. Now, obviously, as we go through the process of consultation and the like, there's always a chance that we may end up in court over this.
So
I
if
guess
we were to choose option 2 or 3, there is the potential that it could still be challenged.
can be challenged. The thing about what we're doing is there is a process to follow. And if you follow the process, then a court is unwilling to overturn the decision that the council made. And Wairau is a classic case. They had the forester owners who had a big crack at them, and I think it all went all the way to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And it was the decisions that the council made were upheld on every occasion because of the process they followed. So it is our anticipation that we are going to be following the process. We have hired the person who was working heavily with Wairau. So Stephen Halliwell is on our team as a consultant. And we've also employed Jonathan Salter, who is probably the best local government lawyer in the country. He wrote the textbook on it. So we're covering ourselves and getting the best people to get this thing over the line. And it's not so much the council may still choose to stay with option 1. But at least we've looked at it, and that's what we're aiming for. So can you have the next one? That's at QV. So they've done their 3 yearly revaluation. I've told about the hydros, the movement to them. Transfer to Three Waters. We'll be bringing in, they will start paying as utility, but there is a section 21 of the Local Government Rating Act that says you cannot have more than 30% of your rates collected in a fixed charge uniform manner, and uniform is everybody across the district pays it, not some people pay a fixed charge. That's not part of that. We will end up at 40.69 with the removal of Three Waters revenue. So the other thing that the council are proposing is to move back to the 30% cap in year 1 of the LTP. That has an impact in that higher capital value will pay more because the fixed charge will be less. But we've got to get back there anyway, whether it's over 1 year or over 5 years, that's the limit we've got. The council thought that given Three Waters will be removed, so the rates bill for all the urbans who are connected to a water will go down. I know that's not the total that people will pay won't, but the bill that you get from CODC will be significantly less, given that we're not charging for Three Waters. So they thought that the best idea was to move the cap back to 30% in year 1. Next slide, thanks. That's it. Questions?
The timing on Three Waters and
Yep.
and your proposed change?
Yep. Okay. So Three Waters will leave us on 1 July 2027. This will start on 1 July 2027. We have to go through a process of consultation. It has to be a special consultative process, which means it goes out to everybody. It's out there for at least a month. People get their say and they submit like you normally would for an LTP. But what they're actually submitting on is the statement of proposal around rates, and that will flow into what we have as a revenue and financing policy, which is an integral part of the LTP. So the revenue and financing policy determines what rates are levied, how much is rates, how much is user charges, and that sort of stuff. So we will be going out to consultation, as I said, late July through to early September. We'll get that hearings done, and I think we'll be done and dusted, whatever the outcome is, by the end of October.
Will you have enough information on the three waters implementation for your debt relief for?
Yes.
Probably.
Yep. We currently have, in terms of debt, we have $85 million in debt total. 65 million of that belongs to Three Waters. So that's always been ring fenced. We're in discussion with the Three Waters team about how that gets transferred at 1 July, how the assets get transferred at 1 July. Who's going to do the billing? That won't be billing that we will be doing for us. It will be, we'll be acting as agent for the Three Waters entity. So we may be still billing, but it'll be on their letterhead, their bank account, their GST, their phone number, which is the most important thing, I think, for us, so that we're not receiving questions that we can't answer.
Do you have any contractual obligations with them?
Not yet. That will come in the next 12 or so, 12 months, just over. Yeah.
I'm going to get back to the start. So I basically can't quite get a grip on this. So I'm going to go right back. So in my mind, that if you increase capital value, go from land values to capital values for your ratings, that will increase everybody's rates.
No, the reason, because everybody's if you look at it, take a town, let's take Cromwell for argument's sake. The majority of Cromwell's value sits in capital value. Okay, they have a value of land which tends to be similar across their area in terms of the town. Now, they might have little bits of fluctuations, but the value sits on what people put on that land. So if you've got a growing area, the capital value, which is effectively land value plus the value of improvements, will flow to those areas that have put more capital into their property. So if you're looking at it from a perspective of a farm, for argument's sake, majority of the farm value is potentially, given dairy as an exception, is in the land. There is, if you look at a $20 million property, 10% of that might be capital value. Certainly is higher, but 10% of it is capital value. And you have fewer of those farms across the district.
So it's not a combination of both. It's moving. You say you can get rid of the land value side of it and just be on the capital side. So some people that will.
Some people will. What I'd expect to happen, and we did some heat maps.
Hard to when they get your head around who's going to get money and who's not. Obviously, hydros is one of them. They're going to be charged more money. I'm sure that's going to sit.
Depending on the option you choose, right? If option 2, which is just moving to capital value, I'd expect the hydros to pick up their bit, which will impact everybody, which will flow onto everybody as a benefit. So the increase would be lower across the board. We've done the analysis across every property, so we know from depending on which option you choose, where the heat, through the heat map, where that comes in, and the towns do start to pay a little bit more. They're paying a little bit more, and what we've done is we've effectively excluded the Three Waters rates because you can't then compare like with like. So what I'm expecting to happen, given that there are more urban with more value, 54% of the the value sits in the urban space, I would expect rates to be shifting to the residential space. There will be increases because things like orchards haven't paid on capital value before, so the value of the trees suddenly come in. The value of the
Could be though, like that's, you know, that is your industry, you know, like.
oh, absolutely, yeah, and then yeah,
It's difficult enough now,
Yep.
let alone make capital on your, on rates on your plants, things, you know,
Yep.
so. Find that hard to take. What's the purpose of it all? You know, like where are you going with it? You know, does it, you said that the piece of pie is the same. So what's the point in doing it if the pie doesn't change?
well, the size of the pie doesn't change, it's who pays their slice. So
I
that
understand that, yes.
does change
Totally understand
potentially, yep. And
That's, yeah,
yep, I mean, you look at things
just
like,
shuffling your cards, really.
yeah, but what the council are looking for a fair and flexible and future-proof rating system. That's what they said they wanted to do.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
this
Yeah.
goes down that track. And look, as I said, it may be that option one, which is status quo, is the one that council ultimately decides in October that that's what they want to do.
Yeah, I'm with Jim. I'm struggling to see how in option 2 or 3, everyone doesn't lose.
I guess what I'm looking at, the difference between 2 and 3 is that multiple of 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Means that the commercial entities who can claim GST and tax exemption are only paying 57% of an increase. At the moment, there's a case to saying they're being subsidised because they've got a tax deductible GST refundable expense. And not all of them are cost plus like hydros, but I can see there's an equity in there to some degree, which is why I think option 3 might address some of that.
So then if that's the case, then are we sort of saying that even though most properties would increase their rate expectation because of using a capital value calculation, that would be offset by the greater increase in other kinds of properties paying more. So even though, I'm just making shit up, potentially like it's $1,000 more a year for a resident, you know, to be paying in rates, but because of what hydros are paying and because of what commercials are paying, that increase could actually then be 200.
Yes, that's, and if you think about it from the point of view of currently everybody's on land value, and you make the assumption that on average, the move from land value to capital value, you'll have an average property value then. What you would expect if everybody moves up by a similar amount, because we haven't increased the size of the pie, everybody should be paying a similar amount to what they were paying before.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's all in how, and there will be, absolutely understand there will be individuals who will have different outcomes to their particular rating solution, right? It will be, and that'll be because someone's gone and, you know, where they started off with a similar sized piece of land, and one's put a $500,000 house in, so their value's doubled, and someone's put a $2 million house on, so their value's gone up by 2.5 times, kind of thing. So those things will definitely impact. So from the point of view of individuals, there will be, as I said, winners and losers. But what the council are looking at specifically is to make the system fairer. And
Almost border around wealth tax, isn't it?
well, it's funny you should mention that, because rates is a tax on wealth. That's what it is. Okay. So the more you have, the more you pay. Effectively, at its simplest form, wealth tax, that's what it does. Unfortunately, that's the only way that we've got to collect revenue, is based on property values. So we are kind of, it's almost the sledgehammer to crack a walnut type of scenario. So, but yeah, look, it's a tax on wealth. The bigger your property, the higher the wealth, the more you pay.
Contact as well.
Yeah.
And I just wonder the impact of rent when our rents are already significant. So there are people who are unable, for whatever reason, to have
Yep.
their own property, and to be having some of these costs being passed on to them by people with multiple properties. That's also a concern.
Yeah,
Well,
look,
and contact's the same, you know, like if they pay 3.5 million extra in tax or rates, who's going to pay that?
well, yeah,
Cost-
Yeah, they're like-
They're not weary. They're-
Contact is a multi, they're spread across the nation.
Yeah, anticipated, yes.
They may choose to do that. I mean, what they make last time, $192 million.
They ain't going to come that, are they?
But I guess what I'm saying is, from the point of view of council, to provide a fair, flexible, future-proof, should we be taking into account what other organisations are going to do that would do anyway? You know, they are not backwards and coming forwards about increasing pricing. We have to look after what the council needs to do, regardless of what flows on. You know, we don't, the Sky towers that, you know, transmit the Sky Sports and stuff. Telecom, we're going to have all those incorporated into paying more rates. Will that increase? May do, or it may not even register on their radar, given it's Chorus or, you know, 2 Degrees or whoever. It's just the cost of doing business, and we can't set our system based on what might happen from what they may do.
Already had some feedback from Federated Farmers. Orchardists included in that advocacy from Federated Farmers.
No, but we will talk to the orchardists separately. They will have their own.
Agriculture will be the-
And so if they were,
agriculture will be-
if their advocacy led to a significant enough challenge, then there could be additional changes to.
Absolutely. The thing that's certain about what we put up is it's not going to be the end product, I believe. There will be things that come in and say, why are you doing that? I guess the council then has some guiding principles, and the principles are, what makes you different?
Yeah.
Why are you different from, you know, why is a dairy farmer, given that they've got high capital value in their sheds and whatnot, they're still part of the farming fraternity. What makes them any different? They've just got a high capital value there. So that's the question that the council have asked itself quite throughout all of the workshops, is what makes it different? And that's why they're prepared to go down the track of at least talking about removing the differentials on hydro. What makes them any different? Okay, they're bigger, certainly, but are they significantly different from anything else that you wouldn't do what the council's putting up as proposals? So that's one of the guiding principles that the council have been using. Because the other thing is, you get into these, well, we need to put this in place to fix that problem, and that causes that problem, and then I've got to do, and you run into, every time you get a revaluation year, someone's going to be they'll be at a lot, you know, they'll be impacted badly. Whereas what the council's proposing is trying to simplify stuff. But you talk about forestry, for argument's sake, you know, there's more than likely going to be some submissions on forests. And the council then may turn around and say, well, that 2 times multiplier we're not going to put in, but we are going to put it in forest owners so that they pay more, because they cause, you know, you've got, I mean, if you've got a logging truck down the road, that's 90 vehicle movements. So there's an impact on our roading. You could say the same for dairy farming. You know, when you've got milk tankers driving up and down the road. Mining, you're going to have all of that. So you want to be able to define a system that allows you new things to come in, mines, solar farms, and the like, which we have all talked about. And if Martin was here,
That'll be.
An airport at Terrace.
interesting, because the Valuation Act doesn't allow you to value plant machinery. So QV have got to come up with a definition of what's plant and machinery.
Yeah.
are the panels plant and machinery, or are they part of the? So that discussion with QV hasn't happened yet, and that was part of the problem with I think the hydros. They considered everything that was in the machinery hall. That was plant machinery, so there was very little value in the actual dams themselves. Whereas, you know, you've got the dam wall, you've got the penstocks. The only part of the machinery is in fact the turbine that's doing its thing. Everything else is part of the land and buildings, i.e. part of the capital value. So that is what changed as well.
Would have counted a tree on an orchard or a vineyard, like the grapes and things. It's a machine. It's growing something that you sell.
Yeah.
Creating.
Yeah. I didn't write the legislation.
Look, if I'm reading the tea leaves right, I think with Three Waters that there will be a lower contribution from council rates, and the blowtorch will come and say, well, that's only gone down by 100, but Three Waters added 300. And that's where the blowtorch is probably
Especially
going
with
to come.
$65 million worth of debt that they're going to be wanting
Yep.
to recover at speed.
Plus all their costs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look, that's I understand what you're saying. I think that's a Three Waters argument.
Yeah, but we'll be judged on.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will.
But it's got to be 100 and you've gone up 300.
That's right. And that is why part of what we're looking at doing as support for Three Waters is if we are needed to provide admin support, it's all on their letterhead.
Yeah.
It's all their phone number. It's all their bank account. We just printing stuff effectively, so that they will be dealing with it. And you will get that. You will get ours has gone down, but theirs has gone up by more than ours went down. I guess that's part of the of where we're at.
That tricky part where we're in no control of that. So you can
Yep.
think you're doing the right thing, as you say, Tony, by reducing by 100, and you've got absolutely no idea or no influence on whatever Three Waters does.
Yep.
Exactly.
Be bigger.
Yeah.
Oh, never get smaller. And I guess that then still holds true for your generators, your utilities. You know, if we kept it at the same level, would that change their pricing? Probably not. I would suggest that they would be pricing it as they normally would price it, regardless of what we do. And to be honest, I know we're in public, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think $3 million is rounding for generators who might have made, you know, profit of nearly 200 million last time. They'll do what they'll do. So that's where we're at. I guess look out for the next, when we actually get to the point of putting the statement of proposal out. The councillors are pretty heavily involved in this, and it's councillor driven, not staff driven. So we're out there to support them, and happy to answer any other questions that you might have.
You have a little bit of modelling available on the public consultation. So
What we are going to do for the
options.
options, we have got type your valuation number in on the website, and it will give you the cost of each of the options for you particularly. It will exclude, or status quo, obviously it will exclude Three Waters, because it'll be looking at 26-27, which will be next financial year, which will still include Three Waters. So we've got to pull those out. So you're looking apples with apples. But yes, we will have that. And we're hoping to kind of take that sort of thing on the road with us, so we can, when we attend meetings, we can show people what it looks like.
One little part of the economy we haven't talked about is probably retail, where capital value relative to land value is probably as extreme as anywhere, and they are probably under more extreme economic time.
And I come back to the point where we had to put something out.
Yeah.
And the fact that we could have put 13 options out would have confused everybody. But I guess the council what they've said is that they're open to hearing what people have got to say. And if it's too big of an impact on commercials, then how do we mitigate that? Do they want to mitigate that what makes them different? That type of question will be asked and answered for those types of things.
With your
really
multiplier,
important
you could
question.
differentiate a wee bit with your multiplier, maybe.
Oh, look, I don't make those decisions.
just
I, look, that is really up to the council.
Lever, yeah.
It's a lever that they can pull, yeah.
Because saying, I think what makes them different is a crucial question. It's when you're comparing the warehouse with the wool shop. You know, and that has to be taken into account because there are significant differences in both of those in terms of not only purchasing power and income, but a whole range of other things as well. So yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you do have the one side where it's, you know, a small local business, capital value, land value is probably not that high. You've got the red shed. They'll be paying a lot more because their capital values are higher. But it's the question of how that plays out. And the council, as I said, have put up 3 options. They're kind of at each end of the spectrum, if you like. So there could be a meeting somewhere, but it depends how the consultation goes. So, yeah.
The way you go, Doug.
I was going to say, I was about to close it off.
Oh, no.
Got one more.
Yeah, it's just my philosophy, you know, like I just can't help think that, you know, we're just shuffling the cards around and it's just the same piece of pie. And then you're doing this, you're going to end up, some people will benefit out of it. You'll never hear from them. You're going to piss a whole lot of people off and you're going to hear from them. You know, I just, what's the point in doing it all? You know, like it's of no benefit.
But to ensure that
You're not
you can actually sit here and
a
say
little
the
bit of
system is fair.
Yeah, a little bit of fairness. I understand that, but I'm not sure.
I mean, look,
If you see the fairness and all that in my mind, I just don't see it.
if you look at it from
It's
the
just-
point of view that there are some groups who don't contribute based on their values, and I'm talking all of the utilities, there's $500,000 in there.
But just why not just tax the utilities then?
Because we can't, we've got no way of doing that
Yeah.
unless you turn around and said, well, we're going to tweak the rating system again and we're going to levy on the utilities a rate. Then you come up with, how is that fair? What makes us different? Not consistent.
Yeah, no, but the whole exercise doesn't produce anything, you know, other than happier people. Or some people are a bit happier, some people aren't happy.
Good thing is the community board, we're expecting a submission from the community board. So,
Which could be status quo.
Absolutely the same way, are we? Look, I understand what they're trying to do, but it's the end of the day, what's it all about? You know, like why just do it? You know, like
I
just
think it's
gonna end
not
up-
fair as it is. I think status quo is not fair.
So we've got then councillors and us can all sit there and say to the public face to face, this is a fair system. And I think that is worth doing it.
That's
But we will be there just looking at the time.
Thank you so
There's another one, but thank you very much.
all right. No, the system so far. Yeah, anyway.
And welcome Harley and
Alex.
Alex to join us too.
You got
So we have another public workshop. So this one is on swim schools, which I'd imagine there'll be a lot of parents very interested to hear about. Take it away.
Awesome, thanks. You can go to the next slide. Thank you for, does everyone know me? I think so. I'm Carly, by the way, and I've got
Doing really
Alex. Yeah, I've got Alex here. She's just going to talk on the properties, the policy side when we get to it. So we came to the community board last year with this. We went to council in January and they've decided they want to do a workshop. So we're coming to you guys. We've got the workshop on Wednesday. So we just want a little bit of feedback and what you think. So we want to discuss whether we want multiple providers operating in our CODC pools. We want to discuss private swim school operations in further detail. We do have the draft policy framework for consideration, and we want you guys to help guide develop a formal policy if we kind of decide on those. All right, so a little bit of background. We have private swim school in Alex. We don't have it across any of our other pools. Ranfurly, we have a little bit. They come in and out for the summer, but this is a long-standing private swim school that's worked in Alex. In the past 6 months, we've had other people coming and wanting to provide private swim school and coaching in our facilities. We've got no policy, so it's really hard for us to say yes, no. Are we going to let more people in? Are we not? So this is why we've come to you guys to see if we can get a policy and if we want more private swim schools. We want to balance community access with and protecting our council services. And we need clarification between swim schools and coaching because it can be a little bit different. Slide. This is where we're sitting at the moment with our current CODC swim schools. We have had 2,400 active enrolments the last financial year. So you can see that we've had a really steady increase over the last 5 years in our swim school enrolments. Just to be aware, these aren't students. Active enrolments is, say, one child could be enrolled over the whole year 4 times. So this is the term of active enrolments. Our income from Alex, we've had 107K, in Cromwell 156. So we've got a bigger swim school in Cromwell than we do in Alex, because Alex, we do have a private provider, and our staffing costs are there too, just to give you guys a bit of an understanding. What we're doing now, because we're getting so many wait lists, we've got so many kids wanting to get into swimming. We've put on 12 new classes in Cromwell. We're hiring new teachers, and we put on weekend classes again in Alex. So we're trying to expand our CODC swim school because we know it's such a value, important skill for life. So we're trying to do some more classes as well to help carve those wait lists.
Can I just confirm the wait list exists in Cromwell?
Cromwell and Alex. Yeah, waitlists are really hard because we won't offer a space and then people can't take it because of other commitments. So then they go on a wait list. People need specific times and days, which can be really hard. But at the moment, I think the guys are getting like 3 or 4 enrollments every single week that we're trying to fit into our current swim school. So next slide, please. I just wanted to touch here on private swim school across New Zealand because this has come up before. So Swimming New Zealand has about 36 registered swim schools, include both council and private operators, but there's a lot more across New Zealand, about 60 plus. Swimming New Zealand has advised that a single site provider is best practice in New Zealand, and there's only 3 other councils that have dual providers with private swim school and a council swim school in the same facility. Next slide, please. We're one of them. We're one of them. Queenstown is one of them. Auckland potentially has some too, but they will have, say, for specific requirements, if they need languages taught, classes taught in other languages, so they might have a private provider providing that. But here we have, I just want to give you a really good snapshot of our admissions by hour and our peak times. So peak demand is between, as you would guess, 3-4 o'clock. So you can really see the peak when we have a lot of our swim schools come in. Can you see? Also 9, 10, 11, that's where we have our daily swimming lessons as well. My next slide will describe why I've got this up there. It does drop after 5, but then, thanks. But we do have swim clubs coming in at that time as well. And non-peak periods could provide opportunities for commercial use. Next slide. Okay, this is going to be hard to see, but
I'm just going to go back, Kelly.
Yeah.
So your suggestion is non-peak times, so after 5 o'clock is an opportunity for a private swim school. Okay.
Yep, so that's why I've popped this in here. Weekends as well, we do a Saturday, but Sunday we've got no swim schools. But the other thing you have to have into consideration is the public. So example, if Sunday is the only day that there's no swimming lessons, if we put swimming lessons on there, then are we giving more space to swimming lessons than the general public used to? It's a hard balance, which you can see in our next slide. This is a Wednesday night at the moment.
I have put it in your meeting folder as well.
Yeah,
I'd like to do it that way.
I still couldn't read it
These
there.
pages.
I can explain this. So this is just what our bookings look like on a, for example, Wednesday night. Top one's Cromwell, bottom one's Alex. And Cromwell, we only have one lane available. These are those peak times. And then in Alex, we've got private swim school, swim club, and our swim school. It leaves really little space for public to come in and swim. So this is where that balance is between public, our swim school, coaching. So that's just a really good insight of what's happening in our peak times at our pools right now.
And I'm just confirming, it's only the pink on the very far right that is the current private swim school provider in a single lane.
That's correct at this moment. Yep. And then if we had more in there, then that would, yeah. So the dark color is club. And then we are in lane 1 and 2 for Alex, and we're in lane 1 and 6 at Cromwell.
My experience is that it doesn't really put pressure on the public participation.
In the afternoons?
When the swim schools and things are there, like there's not thousands of there.
Not at that time. I think they know to stay away from that time.
So they operate.
Yeah.
So they operate in that area.
Yeah.
So the public's a very low usage around that area, but why for the schools?
It is just, we have had public feedback when people aren't aware of it. They'll come in and they'll say, oh, it's so busy. How come we can't have any lanes, or we'll come back later. So the staff do get that quite a bit when people aren't aware that we're busy.
And it's the memory that came up in the last LTP around not wanting to close the outdoor pool. Was they wanted more space because the swim schools were taking up the pools.
Yeah, there's an expectation of access. So the public are expecting they can show up and have a space. They'll be okay with there being a swim school in there. But if they were to show up, I mean, if you're in the room with Saskia when we close the Cromwell pool too many times in the morning and she's expecting to exercise that day. So the public have an expectation that there will be a space available. They're okay with us moving them. But we've very much designed this policy around that hierarchy of needs that is referred to in the bottom of the policy. And I'm jumping you around a bit, but
Have you shared the policy? Because I didn't see that anywhere.
We're not there yet. We've got the framework here. So this discussion is more about, do you think we want more providers in the pools, knowing how much the growth in the community is, what our pool space is? We're not going to get any new lanes anytime soon. So it's like,
I need to see more than Wednesday.
pardon?
I would need to see more than Wednesday, 2 hours, in order to make that decision. So like you provide us with Wednesday.
Well, Carly's given you that as an overview. So what we found the feedback when we went to Cromwell is Cromwell had a bit of feedback for us too, that they wanted to maximise the commercial use of the pool, and that they weren't so concerned what that would do to space allocation. They want to make the highest possible profit. And we have designed the policy to date around the principle of leaving 2 lanes minimum open to the public. So what Carly's trying to show you here quite clearly is, say on a Wednesday evening, that would be really hard to do if we were to start putting these private providers in those peak times. So ideally, we would not like to hand you all the operating data for the pools. What we would like to be able to get is quite a clear distinction back from you if that space is worth protecting or if you would be open to commercial use of it.
I understand your point. However, I think you've chosen the night that is the night of swim club and the night of private swimming lessons. So does the same conflict emerge on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays and Fridays?
3 days a week.
What, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
Off the top of my head, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Monday. Yeah.
Okay, and that is the swimming club and the private provider.
In Alex, yes. Yep.
Does the swim club take 2 lanes?
3 lanes.
3 lanes, private take 1.
1 in
It
Alex.
leaves 2 for the public, is that?
Yeah, and we take 1 as well.
And you get 1.
We take one as well.
Who?
CODC swim school. So you've got swim club, private, us.
So it
and then
leaves 1
public.
lane.
1 lane, yeah.
And you wouldn't want to be swimming in that lane.
No,
It's horrible.
Is there a lot of people using that lane at that time?
Yeah, yeah.
You could get more, because I am far from the only one with very young children who goes, those classes are happening, we're not going near there.
Yes,
even though there'd be opportune times to go with the kids, you don't because you know it's
It's like when you turn up and there's a birthday party on.
yeah, and you try to evacuate quickly.
And can I just also confirm that we're speaking about the Alexandra or Cromwell Swim Club. When you talk about private providers, they are included in your conversation.
No, they're a club, so they are on a different level
So
than a private organisation. So you have to think of a club is non-for-profit, and then private swim school is for a profit. Yes.
but the issue isn't really the private provider here. The issue is the swim club.
The issue is, do you want to open up to private providers as a new user amongst these other user groups that we already have, essentially? And if so, how and what will that look like?
How are we fitting it all in? Yeah.
I come back to a comment you made earlier, a little bit about what are our priorities for delivery?
Mm.
Yes.
And we had a conversation this morning in advance of this about trying to get our hierarchy based on what the community needs are.
Yes.
It's about water safety, survival, kind of bottom end, isn't it? And then a little bit of learn to swim 25 metres or 50 metres. And I see the next priority is about your swim clubs and the excelling skill level. So I kind of think that's a hierarchy of needs, which from my point of view is kind of saying what are our priorities and who delivers. And some private operators are delivering at the bottom and some private operators are delivering at the top. So I kind of think I would see that as the order of priority.
Makes sense. So what Carly has is a space allocation guide that's quite close to that. Priority 1 is learn to swim or swim education. Priority 2 is community sport and swim development. Priority 3 is community sport and leisure participation. 4 is standard space hire. 5 is providing space for elite users. And number 6 is providing space for commercial operations. And that's how we've treated the pools to date. So as we start developing a policy of where they'll fit, they would fit as priority 6, if that is consistent with members. But if we start to get a direction like we got from Cromwell that they see this as priority 1, it would really change the scope and how it operated, and we'd need to do a lot more work.
Well, see, I think your priority 6 is a different beast because some of those commercial operators are actually delivering up services further down your food chain.
So you would like them to be considered a priority 1 user for that learn to swim function and the commercial element to be secondary?
We talked a little bit about understanding what the delivery is now for the CODC operation for the learn to swim commercial operators and saying kind of we didn't really get a good fix on where it is today, where it was 2 years ago, because it's a staff-based.
It's really helpful and changes the framework of how we think about it quite considerably to say these could be a priority 1 to insert as long as they're meeting that goal, but the commercial operation is less important to you than the provision of that service and meeting
If
the
there's a need for that, you know, because of capacity that we're not filling off CODC or something else. And that's kind of, I think, where we're at with one of those commercial operators has got a waiting list for learn to swim stuff.
Yeah. Does that match about where you're sitting at as well? I can see.
Yeah, I'm unsure, to be honest. So I get genuinely confused about this whole situation. So Cromwell Community Board have identified that they want as many commercial providers paying as much money as possible so that the pool makes a shit ton of money. Is that what you're saying?
We're saying when we took this same workshop to Cromwell, their direction was to enable a higher use of commercial space for the intention of creating a profit to bring down costs.
For a week, how do they compare to us on lane usage? Because we obviously got the one example, and obviously it's 3 nights in Alex, but what is that compared to Cromwell?
We don't have one at the moment. So this is where I'm coming to saying, do we want to let more private swim schools operate? Because we don't have any in Cromwell. None in Cromwell at the moment. And then, yeah.
But you're still only suggesting that.
But they want to get them.
One.
Private swim providers, yes.
So 2 providers.
One was different.
Coach. Yeah. And we would allocate the amount of space available and the times and have that all in the policy. Some thoughts about what a fair application process would look like. We do all of those things and meet all those concerns. but we are starting to see a bit of a philosophical difference emerge amongst our members on how to interpret at that high level. So that's the advice we mostly need from you today, and then we can bring you operational details. We work through that.
I don't think it is fair to limit it to a single provider if there is capacity beyond the time that they need the space. Because if we're looking at Alex, for example, we've got a very long-term private swim school that's well versed in the way that your pool operates and has significant community support. And we know that there are others that are interested in establishing private swim schools of a smallish size. And what we're saying, based on your proposal, is that they wouldn't get a look in for a year. They'd have to put an application in and wait to be compared with the other swim school, even if there was space.
Well, this is where we're wanting to get your advice. Like, how many providers per pool do you think would be reasonable? How are they selected? What pool space is available and when can we fit them in? So this is also some guidance that we're trying to get from you of how you see it all fitting in together.
From what you said there, you were quite keen for us to be really fair to the existing provider, but also have an early opportunity for a secondary provider.
I don't believe you should limit to a single provider if there is capacity and space. If
Okay.
there is not capacity and space, then that's a different conversation. But if we're limiting it, even though there is capacity and space, that feels arbitrary. You know, just say you were talking about a Sunday, for example. If there was a private swim school provider that wanted to go in and offer a very specific autism-friendly swim school opportunity on a Sunday in a time where there are not many other swim schools happening and that there aren't many visitors, we're automatically saying they wouldn't be eligible because another swim school exists. I don't think that's fair.
Okay. No, that's feedback. We
So
can
I
take.
want to go step back and go, what are we even counting as space and capacity? Are we saying, is it one lane? Is it two lanes within the? I think we need to, go back and go,
That's question 2 and 3 up there. That's absolutely. I think that's the starting point.
instead of going how many providers, I think we need to work out what's capacity with space and things first.
From this conversation that having, and I'm aware you might be about to counter me, so I'll say what I get and then you're going to tell me if I'm wrong. But
I think you need to. Yeah.
I'm getting the viewpoint here that you want a really fair model for the operators and you want it to be transparent and you want those options to come in. But perhaps the idea of leaving it open to all operators and pool space be darned isn't the same here. You still want that space for the users. So we're getting pretty good guide through that. I'm comfortable we can meet your specificity, but Jim, hit me, see how it changes.
No, not quite. I just want to drill down slightly on the central swim school side of it. Okay,
Yes.
so are they competing with the providers that are coming?
That's correct.
Where? In what area? What area are they competing? Because I think Tony and I had this discussion where the swim school, he said that the swim school just teaches kids how to swim, and then I said, I think they extend beyond that a little bit into what these private people are doing. So from my perspective, I just think that if you let competition in, we can have other providers that do the autism on a Saturday and whatever, because they don't compete with the swim school. But anything that competes with the swim school, it's like we shouldn't have it, in my mind.
So if we have another private swim school that's providing exactly what we're providing, it is competition. The person can choose to come with us as CODC swim school or go with a private provider. And we could be doing exactly the same lesson as a private provider. So, and if they choose the private provider, we're not getting that.
That's correct.
So that is a.
I think that's right.
But finances of the pool.
That is difficult because remember in that situation, we're both the competition and the provider of the lane space. So suddenly that turns into a policy that requires both me and Saskia or a general counsel to look over and make sure we've got the clauses right. So the more we're in that space, the more complexity we add.
You will make more money out of putting people through your swim school than you will by renting the lane out to other people.
Yeah,
That's good.
but I come back to you're making the assumption that a user who has chosen not to engage with the swim school that by removing the competition, they will choose to engage with the swim school. And I can tell you directly through my experience, that would not be the case. If there was not a private swim school provider, I would not be engaging in the Central Otago Swim School. And I shared my feedback very directly as why many times and was ignored. And that's the experience of many users. So it's not that you would automatically get that income. You would
So-
just simply remove the choice.
Yes. Yeah, without doubt. So, but that comes back to the swim school. Yeah, swim school isn't good enough. Is it? Would that be? I don't know.
That would
We-
be.
Bring it out there.
We've worked,
Like-
yeah, we've
It's
worked,
because we've
Yeah.
got. Well, I know that's a fact. To be honest.
we've worked so hard over the last
I'm
4 or
not
5
begging
years.
you.
We've got a solid, I don't want to sit here, but we've got a solid team. We've put everyone through training. We're stepping up our game, and we have every year for the last couple of years. It's been
As
one of
someone
our.
that had a young child in there last year, I say apart from the communications, which could have been better, I had found what people had told me it was going to be like based on their past experiences. It was much better than anything I'd anticipated. I had put it off by about 12 months. It was Summer who talked me into it because I just heard so many negative stories about it. But yeah, and the communication was probably the one part where I think it fell over. But overall, the people that were teaching them and everything was quite good. It wasn't the horror stories I'd heard from people from 7, 10, and in some cases longer years ago.
Yeah.
So I think there has been improvement there.
But I also think that if we're saying competition is a bad thing because we only want to provide the Central Otago option, then what is the motivation to improve your service when you are the only choice?
Competition isn't a bad thing either.
That's
I
what I
didn't,
agree, yeah.
so competition can also be a really good thing. So either way, good, bad, those are the options that we have to weigh up. So yep, competition, good, competition.
I
Yeah.
like what you've put in the policy, Alex, in terms of expectations regarding child protection training. I like what you've put in there in terms of the expectations of training of staff. And also in terms of a complaints policy and wanting to ensure that the council also improve theirs. But I think that the expectation of reducing it to a single provider becomes kind of a first and most experienced, best dressed, unfair situation. And I know that other pools across the country who may not be counted actually in your private swim school provider because of the niche in which they support, additional needs, disabilities, neurodiversity, all of those things, we remove the opportunity to serve that group, those groups in our community. And I don't think it's fair to expect your swim instructors to cater to specialist needs that require specialist training. Because I know how involved that is. So I think that from my point of view, and I'm the exact opposite of Jim, I think that there should absolutely be private swim school providers. And I think that the limit should be based on capacity of the pool rather than a single provider.
And what needs they're addressing. So the litmus test for competition is, have you both got waiting lists? Have you got waiting lists in CODC and has the private school?
Joe's got waiting lists, yeah.
That is all feedback we can work with. That's great. Thank you. Not strange.
One question though, because it's about the cost.
Yeah.
So we know that these pools, and they've been doing this for years, are running at quite a large loss. It's not, you pay to enter it, and we had conversations around this table 3 years ago about not increasing the entry cost too much because we don't want to make it unaffordable, but at the same time that then chucks it on ratepayers. If we were to say more private funds and those lanes are then being used by that, what is that going to do to that deficit in the pools? Because we're over $1 million deficit each year to run that thing. It's not a
Always
cheap
going to
place.
be in a deficit even.
Yeah, pools and libraries don't make money. We know that, but we still want to try to minimise it as much as possible.
Because you do only charge a lane hire for those swim schools, don't you?
Yeah, so private
could-
commercial is
Yeah.
$30 an hour for a lane hire.
I think that could increase.
So I'm just going to come back on that slightly. That I'm not against having other people in the pool. It's just the competition side of it, So I feel as though that if the disability people want to do it, then you're not competing with the council, are you? So we can allow that. Or say, for example, where the swimming club Okay, so within the swimming club, they want to provide some extra tuition to a guy that's got a wonky arm, you know, like, and I like, and you can go to the dad and say, well, you know, we can give you some extra tuition too, you know, which is within that. So, and you're not competing with the central. So I'm not blocking everybody out. It's just where we've got our block, other people can still operate private operators within space and time and everything else. So
And then you'd be the opposite of Cromwell.
So
yeah, so I'm opposite. Exactly, because they want to commercialise it. Yeah,
Tony, where's your final thoughts on this?
I'd go back to your order of priorities, I think, and saying that let's get ground zero. People get confidence in water safe. Let's get ability to swim 50 metres. Well, that's our priority. And then that's your point 2 and 3 of the other thing about what space is available, what's our demand. And then and whether it's commercial or, so I'd take commercial out and say, what are they delivering? And if they're delivering around that level, they're in the priority. Then we go to the next level up and the elite stuff. But the elite guys are all 6 till 7 in the morning.
I think the answer to the commercial is going to lie in the application of those priorities and how you've worded it. So I think it's all resolvable through there.
At the end of the day, we want to get as many kids in the pool, learning how to swim.
That's right. And
That is the goal. That is the goal.
I would reiterate, agreeing. It's an and, not a but. I would like to see the council considering some of our more diverse needs in our youth population, children and youth population in terms of lessons. Because if you have a child on the autistic spectrum, what you currently provide is hell.
Correct.
Because it is just the timing, the number of people in the class, the way the lessons are operated, the sensory overload. And so I would like to see us being considerate of that. And I don't think it has to be every week, but it would be lovely to have sensory friendly opportunities for our children and young people that desperately need that.
There is an opportunity about 9 o'clock in the morning that I know there's a handful of teenagers. My
There
wife
is, but
next door.
I
Or used
do
to.
have
She's
an
not there.
autistic child. It's a bit more complex than that, so we can make that
Yeah.
for you.
Funny, because I think I said, didn't I say this morning I didn't really care either way? I'm listening to both sides and now I'm sitting getting a bit passionate now. Well, I'm more aligned with Jim. I think that at the end of the day, we've got a public asset there that the public is already paying for. I don't like the idea of then having competition for private profit being introduced to that. I just think that it's better. Why don't we, instead of saying let's bring in new ones, why don't the council look at investing more in the one it's got and having a better quality, if that's what people's concern is, swim school that we've already got.
But that needn't not be at the exclusion of having a private provider. Carly, you're doing excellent work already with what's happening with the swim school, and I desperately hope that it continues. I'd love to see a continued investment of that. I don't think that wouldn't happen because there's a private provider. And I genuinely believe that competition in this regard is positive because you have a waiting list. If you didn't, if you were sitting there with a lone swimming teacher sitting in the pool, freezing in his/her rashi, hoping that children would come and swim with them, different conversation. You have a waiting list, private provider has a waiting list. So competition is proving to be helpful.
hasn't this issue been simmering for a number of years?
It goes up and down, up and down,
all
up
of
and
a
down.
sudden it's all-
And this is why I want
This
a policy
Joe
and
Blakey thing went
and a
on 30 or
framework.
40 years ago. Am I right? Or-
yeah, and this is why
That's great.
I wanted to develop a policy so it doesn't come up again. So we have a clear framework. So when we have applications and people wanting to do it, that I can say, yes, this is how we're doing it. No, this is why. Because this is the problem. It's been going on for more than 4 years. It's been going on for 10 plus years.
I don't see the job on this.
But yeah, I have a problem with single provider.
I don't envy your job on this because you've always got 2 community boards, even within our community board, different views, and you've got the other community board with another view.
And this is why it's a workshop, and this is why it's a workshop with council.
I think the hierarchy of needs is a good way to kind of.
It's a healthy democracy when we don't agree.
We don't want the status quo, haven't we?
You have
So that
identified.
only leaves you with 2.
Actually much clearer than you all think. You've given us a series of principles, an approach to competition, where you want the community to go, several specifics I'll need to watch the recording again to write down, and a great direction for us. So I don't have any more questions unless you have more for us.
And yeah, not discounting from the incredible work that you're doing, Carly.
Thanks.
Which I really do hope that continues to improve the way it has been.
You might have given us a good option B there of just tip all this money into our existing swim school instead.
I'll take that too.
Right, well, thank you guys very much for coming along
Thank you.
and for all the work you are doing. And to all our board members for coming along stuff and getting it sorted and for staff.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks.
Is that it?
That's us.
Good luck at the museum.
No, because I met with them originally just to talk about what they could and couldn't apply for funding for. I mean, it was a 15-minute conversation just now because once I was in the room, it's very hard to when they gave the rundown on. Yeah.
Around
Yeah.
the session you're wanting.
Thanks, Sarah.
Oh, yeah, the regional deals went on a bit